Welcome, everybody. It's really a pleasure to have everyone joining us today. My name is Andy Hunt. I'm the director of the Center for Real Estate here at Marquette University. We're longtime partners with ICSC, personally a longtime member of ICSC for over 10 years now. And so it's thrilling to be able to be a part of this event. For those of you that are watching this later on, the recorded version of this, hopefully you get the chance to enjoy this as well. We're in for a really fascinating discussion. So without further ado, let's jump right in with some introductions of our panelists. We're going to let them self-introduce. Each of them is incredibly accomplished in their careers and comes from a wide variety of different paths within our industry. So I think you're all going to enjoy hearing from them and learning about their experiences, learning about reimagining retail, and then of course learning a little bit more about career paths and finding what really makes you come alive within your own careers. So let's start off with Nina. Ladies first. Nina, welcome. Nina, start us off by just telling us a little bit more about you, your company, and then in simple terms, what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today, so thank you. I'm Nina Rogers. I'm with Shopcore Properties. We're an owner and operator of about 20 million square feet of retail real estate throughout the country, community, power, and grocery anchored centers, and we're an affiliate of the Blackstone Group. So in really simple terms, what I do is I create visions for retail projects and then work with teams to facilitate the execution of that vision. So that can be anything from leasing spaces to tenants, as well as coordinating with our operations and development teams to create placemaking opportunities that help create those places for connection and hopefully make it a place where people want to come really frequently. The process also includes things like working with the community, developing PR and marketing strategies, and finding unique ideas for activating experiences within a project. And I have to say that I love what I do. I enjoy every facet of helping to create places within the community. I think we're all biologically wired for connection, which I think we all really appreciate a lot more over the past year. So the opportunity to create special places and memories is exciting and deeply fulfilling.
And Nina, it's such a privilege to have you here today. So we've got the ownership and the development side with Nina. Now let's switch gears all the way to the other side with the tenant side. Brendan, welcome. Tell us a little bit more about your role with Walgreens.
Hey guys, Brendan O'Brien. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm Brendan O'Brien. I currently work at Walgreens. I'm one of their directors of their real estate portfolios. Walgreens obviously is a corner health destination, formerly more of a C-store, but really a drugstore in nature. And most folks know Walgreens, right? We're within, I think, 7 minutes of 95% of the U.S. population. So 9,000 stores strong, 130 million square feet, very, very mature and successful company. What I currently do is I lead our portfolio of locations where we've actually closed them. So in order to get to 9,000 stores, we've done some major M&A over the years. We've had to make some hard decisions. And of course, we have to figure out what to do with that real estate. So most people don't know it. We have 9,000 open stores. We also have 1,000 closed stores. And currently my team is working on the 1,000 closed stores.
That's well, welcome, Brendan. And if any of you have heard of the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, they profile Walgreens and their rise to become one of the great companies in the United States and the decisions that they made during that time. So, Brendan, I'm sure you'd agree. It's a great read for anybody who wants to learn a little more about the company.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I read that. I liked it. And in fact, what they talked about was our hedgehog strategy. And it was all about doing...
Pick it up. Yeah, it's a great read. And so anyway, but moving on, now we go to our matchmaker, the guy who sits between the Ninas and the Brendans of the world, Wally. So Wally, welcome today. Tell us a little bit more about you and your role.
Thank you. Glad to be here. So first off, I'm with the JLL. JLL is one of the largest global real estate service providers in the world, a little over 90,000 people in over 130 countries. When I tell my family what it is that I do for a living, I always say, simply as I can, I help retailers grow. Now, in the past few years, as Brendan mentioned, there's some retailers that don't need help growing and they want to get rid of some stores. And in fact, Brendan and Walgreens is one of my clients. But, clients that we work with include Starbucks and T-Mobile and Nike, in addition to Walgreens. So, it's what I do generally each day is work with those retail clients, and helping them grow sometimes involves helping them find the sites. Sometimes it's helping them make decisions or just track all of the millions of little things that you need to do to get a single store open, which is a lot. Sometimes we go beyond that. We build the inside of their stores. We take care of it over time. So we provide just about any service that our retail clients could need, short of operating their stores. So that's what I do.
No, perfect. And it's kind of a great lead. And Wally, we're going to go right back to you to start with our first question. Let's hit reimagining retail immediately in our discussion today. A lot of you could be forgiven as students if you thought, well, how often do these industries really change? You've got office and industrial and retail and apartments. But of all of those major asset classes, what you'll start to recognize is that retail is probably the one that is the most constant in terms of change. And reimagining is just written into the DNA. So, Wally, let's talk about that a little bit. Just maybe in the last 10 years, which is really a time frame that a lot of the students can gather. How has retail really changed in just the last decade?
So I think all the students on the call, they shop. They understand what it's like to be a shopper. You might not have space in an office building or an industrial building, so you might not understand, what that experience needs to be. But everybody shops, right? So we all know what we want out of a retail experience, and especially as Americans, we want a lot. We want everything, right? We want variety. We want to find the goods when we go there. We want the stock to be in the store. We want things delivered, not 2 days anymore. Now we want them delivered the next day. So, if you're a retail operator, you have to evolve because your customers, their needs and what they want changes, and there's a lot of competition. So you have to evolve. So, I'm sure as students you read regularly that, is retail dying? Is the mall dying? Because internet and online sales are kind of killing the retail experience. And they're really not. In the big picture, that's what people said 100 years ago about catalogs. When catalogs came out, they thought, the stores will die. There's just, you can order things from a catalog. It's not unlike that today, but what the internet has done is forced retailers to adapt. And so, as you all know, you can buy something online now and just go pick it up in your local store, and maybe that same day. Or if you buy something online, nobody likes to, if you have to return it, nobody wants to package it up in the box and go to the post office. But if you could just go to the store and drop it off and say, can I return this here? That's a great thing. So we are seeing retailers themselves have to adapt. And then the retail shopping center, whether it's a mall or a community shopping center, they are adapting. In the old days, I'm sure, the students, you're not so young that you don't remember that the traditional mall experience was you go to the mall, Macy's, JCPenney, Sears, those were the big boxes that drew everybody, and then you had your rest of your stores. It's starting to change. Now you might go and there's a fun sort of experiential thing that's combined with a restaurant. Maybe it's mini golf, for example, or darts or ping pong, things that you're starting to see these entertainment concepts and better restaurants, not just a food court. So the shopping center developers are saying we have to adapt to what not only the customers want so that they'll be more inclined to come, but that will help our retail tenants because it's drawing more people to shop. So just some of the things that we're seeing.
Yeah, so great. Well, it's funny that you bring up the catalog concept. Everyone calls Amazon the everything store, right? They're kind of known as that. But there was a time where you got a catalog and you could get anything there as well. So it's funny to think how things kind of come around. Mm-hmm. Brendan, there's actually a term for this mixture between online and in person and things like that, omni-channel, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, glad to. Wally hit on it big. The internet has made a huge impact on retail, right? And foot traffic and ultimate spend. But at the end of the day, the internet isn't going to replace brick and mortar retail, right? There's this big evolution from bricks to clicks. But the true magic and synergy is where they work together, right? Let me use an example. A lot of folks still today, and I think we have a poll later here, like to get certain things online and they like to get certain things in person, right? Don't think that's changing in the future. What is really changing is how that all comes together and the magic. For example, Walgreens. We just introduced in the last 6 months, buy online, pick up in store, right? So let's say you don't want to wait a day or two and you don't necessarily want to do the full shopping experience because you want to be safe and conscious of obviously what's going on. So you can order everything online. You can pick it up at the store. It's curbside. It'll be ready in as little as 30 minutes. So that's really the experience where obviously our e-commerce, right, the online side is now talking to these stores in person. But where the rubber really meets the road is how it comes together. Said otherwise, if you have to make the customer wait for 15 minutes when they drive up in your parking lot, probably not going to like that experience. If they pull right in and they can get in and out, they're probably going to come back. So it's really the magic where the clicks and bricks come together.
And in some cases, you guys even have the pick up through drive-through. I know these days, right, Brendan? I mean, what a
limited
what a
items. You can't get the jumbo shampoo and stuff obviously through the drive-through window. But yeah, the health and beauty, a lot of health and beauty we're offering through the drive-through, and man, the drive-through is quite relevant once again.
So, Nina, turning to you a little bit, as the developer, as the physical space, as you start to change the mixture of who's going into some of the developments that you're putting on, how has that changed in the last 10 years? What are you seeing?
So I think that's changed pretty dramatically over the last 10 years, and it's continuing to evolve. I think everybody on the call has probably heard the term like live, work, play. At least once or maybe a couple of times. And I think that that's really accelerated quite a bit over the past decade. So you're seeing more residential, office, hotel in retail projects, and you're seeing more retail in office, residential, hotel type projects. And I think what that has done is really create the synergy that's really important with all the different asset classes working together. And it really enhances the surrounding environment and the customer experience, I think, overall. The other thing that I'd say you're seeing a lot more of is different categories that are coming into projects now that weren't 10 years ago. So just as an example, co-working, pre-pandemic, co-working wasn't really around at all 10 years ago. It was a new concept. And I think it'll be something that comes back after. But things like fulfillment centers, data centers, medical, boutique medical, which would not typically be a part of the project. The other thing I'd say, and Wally alluded to this as well, is the allocation of uses within a project has also changed. So just as an example, it used to be a really good rule of thumb, but that about 10% of your retail project would be restaurants, typically, call it 10 years ago. Now that's really shifted and moved to be closer to 40% for food and entertainment type uses. So that allocation, has changed, and I think will continue to change over the next 5 to 10 years.
So this feels like the perfect time to jump into our poll question. That's all about how do you like to shop? So Michael, if we could pull that up, let's do that. So the question is, which of the following ways is your preferred way to shop? So we've got several answers here. Online only, mostly online. I really honestly just love a mix of both. I really prefer in person. You've got several options here. Quick panelists, how about you? Answer the poll live. Nina, what's your answer?
Honestly, love a mix of both, but mostly for convenience. But it makes me really happy to see that nobody's checked online only.
Yeah, absolutely. Wally, how about you?
I would say the same. What I think online, what it gives so many of us is the ability to find things, even though the experience, I prefer to buy it in the store. But if I can find it first and know that it's there, it's the online, the internet's very convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brendan, how about you?
Definitely a mix. Some things that make sense to order online and arrive at home, I certainly do that. Other things I like to look, feel, and touch, I still like to do that in person.
And I'm going to be boring. I'm going to join all of you guys. There's something about being able to do both. And maybe we all are nostalgic for the way the world was a year ago when it was very easy to do these things. Although, given where how much has changed in just the last year alone is a fascinating look. I know we could probably touch on that for an entire session, but is there anything about the last year that you feel is going to be one of those more permanent changes, whether it's, drive up, pick up, or ordering through an app, or, picking up your food next to, curbside pickup for your food. That's the word I was looking for. So anything that really sticks out to each of you that might be really changing in terms of reimagining retail, just based on the pandemic. Nina, maybe we'll just go right back to you.
Yeah, I think anything that touches on convenience. I think customers are really looking for convenience. So I think you're going to see more of what's convenient and where do you want to spend your time will kind of start to become a lot more clear in projects, really. So all the things you touched on, Andy, in terms of, reserved spaces or curbside pickup or ordering online and pickup, I think all of those things will stay. I really do. I also think for landlords, it's going to be a lot more critical, and for retailers actually, to really create environments where people want to stay and come in.
When you say where they want to stay and they want to come in, are you talking about safety, or are you talking about more gathering places?
I think both. I think safety will probably still be a bit of an issue even after the vaccine is sort of rolled out more broadly. But I also think it's a place to gather. I don't know anybody who's saying right now, hey, if I could go out to dinner, I'd really prefer to just sit at home and eat again, right? So I think the pendulum's really going to swing to the other end. I think people are going to be dying to get out. So the places that you provide, whether it's as a retailer or a landlord, we talked about placemaking a little bit earlier, is really going to be critical and will make the difference.
Yeah, maybe that's a perfect one to go to you, Wally. As somebody who serves retailers on an everyday basis, you're really a big believer that as the pandemic winds down and people are able to safely return to society, that all these the way that retail has shifted toward more entertainment and service and food items, and that's going to come back just as strong as ever. Do we have that right?
I do think that's the case. And, this is a call with a lot of young people on it, trying to learn about real estate. But, the polls, when young people are surveyed, a lot of them say, I like those experiences. I have two teenage daughters. They like to shop. They like to shop in person. It's not, even though they have access to the internet and they could shop online only if they wanted, they certainly like the experience. They're social, and so I think we definitely are. You're going to see a knee-jerk reaction coming out of this, and it's going to take us a while, right? Every retail restaurant chain, sort of think Panera, Raising Cane's, Chipotle, they all are opening new locations with the drive-throughs because everyone's been using a drive-through. But we may find 2 years from now that they might go back to opening some stores that don't have a drive-through. So, but I think Nina's right. People are going to come back, but they're still going to want the convenience that they found. So if they can occasionally order something online and pick it up, they're going to want that.
Brendan, you guys have pivoted to help people quite a bit during this time, and I'm assuming that some of these are going to change. What sticks out the most to you that's been really successful in terms of reimagining how you serve your customers?
Personally, I'm really proud of Walgreens, what we've done as part of this pandemic, both on the testing and immunization side. But to kind of dovetail what Nina was saying, I think convenience and change are the two big things we learned over the last 12 months. And when I mean convenience, like really frictionless convenience, to use that pickup example again at Walgreens, we ran a survey, right, to see if folks would use it, and 100% of users would not use it if it was over 10 minutes waiting in the parking lot. And 90-something respondents said they would reuse it if it was less than 4 minutes. So literally, complete bifurcation in terms of who would use it and who wouldn't based on the time. And so I think there's friction based on wait time, right? So I think a lot of folks are thinking about that convenience. They're thinking about the convenience in an evolving manner. And I think they're thinking about that as it relates to true customer preferences. So think back 10 years ago, it was more like, we'll build it and everyone will come, whether that's in person or online. Now there's a lot more data and analytics taking into account what the customer wants today and what the customer might want a few years from now, right? And that's being built into what's being built. We're not building it and then seeing what the customers want. We're building and testing and learning all at the same time. So basically, just change is inevitable, change is evolving, and that's normal.
You know, the last year especially has been challenging for some retailers, and then for others, they've still been able to do really well. Let's go to Wally to start with this one. You know, Wally, what has stuck out in the last year about the retailers that have continued to thrive? It probably jives with a lot of the themes that we've been talking about here, but are there certain things that you've seen the really successful retailers doing that maybe others need to try to emulate?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we saw even pre-pandemic, but as you'll hear this expression, the pandemic has escalated a lot of solutions that retailers are trying to put in place anyway, but it's expedited them and it's made them put those in place even faster. One of those is improving the online presence. So if you're a retailer and you did most of your business through your stores and you had an online presence, but there was no need to sell that much of your product through that online channel. Suddenly you realized, oh my gosh, I need to improve that experience dramatically. And I give you an example. T-Mobile is one of my big clients. It's a very tiny percentage of people who buy telephones online. As you can imagine, everyone on this call probably has bought a phone in a phone store and you like to pick it up and check it out. But all of a sudden, during the pandemic, T-Mobile closed almost all of their stores for an extended period of time, and so suddenly you wanted to channel or funnel all of those folks who needed to buy a phone to the online system, and it was clearly something that T-Mobile thought, we need to expedite this as quickly as possible and make that their online presence, better and easier for the customer.
It's a really great example, and one that sticks out to me. I'm a Minnesota native, so the home of Target Corporation, and I remember a time just several years ago where their virtual ability to order online and check inventory at stores was pretty poor, and I know that they've really reinvested in that, and now you see that in terms of their financials and their performance. I think we just there were headlines in the last week where they had come out stronger in the last quarter than most people had expected, which is fascinating. Nina, how about you? When you're looking at the retailers that are coming into your developments, or maybe the ones that you're targeting for new developments, I mean, it's your job to be the visionary on this stuff. What are you looking for now?
Well, so one thing, Andy, I just have to mention on Target. Target also announced this week a $4 billion investment into physical stores. So as much as they're investing online, I think it's really important to note that there's a lot of companies, including Target, that is looking to invest in serious capital in additional locations, or whatever that's worth. But to answer your question, regarding, I think there have been certain sectors through COVID that have certainly been sort of leaders. So you take your home improvement categories that have had double-digit increases, right? I think that's been very similar with, sporting goods stores, grocery stores, warehouses, healthcare, home furnishings. So those have been really strong, and certainly we're taking a look at putting them into our projects. Retailers who've been laggards over the last year, kind of understandably, have been the department stores, clothing, restaurants, and the service industry, obviously, and electronics. But I do think that's going to be shifting and changing. So what I'm starting to see in a number of my projects already is that the boutique clothing stores are starting to come back and get really active. And the restaurants are starting to get really bullish. And you're starting to see a migration, particularly from like the Northeast and the West Coast into the Southeast area of the United States, which is really interesting. But people are really bullish, what I'm finding, particularly in the Southeast, and they have big plans. So it's exciting to see.
And that is exciting. And, it's actually a perfect lead into you, Brendan, and the tenant side and how you guys look at this. I'm sure these investments take time, right? The way that you guys built out your own app, which is great to use, I'm sure it took many, many years. So, as you guys are looking to invest in the future, what's the future? What are you guys investing in right now?
It's a good question. Fortunately, we developed our app many years ago. So thank goodness we didn't have to do that at the beginning of the pandemic. We would have really been behind the curve. But what we've been able to do is leverage our app basically as a platform for more than just getting your drugs sent to you in the mail. There's a lot of apps within apps, if you will, or store within stores. Through partners. Partners is a huge thing. So instead of redirecting someone to another app, you'll now go into the Walgreens app and there's this really cool feature called Find Care Now. And immediately we can connect you to primary care doctors, ear, nose, throat doctors. If you have a broken arm and you need to get an x-ray, you can do that literally within a couple clicks. You can see whether you're in network or out of network. So a lot of that convenience and true convenience, right? Not making it difficult. You should be able to get in and get out and not feel like it was painful, right? And I think a lot of folks feel that way. Either they go in the store and they don't have it, that's painful. Or they buy something online and it takes too long, that's painful. So I think a lot of this is just kind of, again, listening to the customers and thinking through what do the customers want. To answer another thing, Andy, when you were saying, how has this really changed and how are folks looking at it? I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the essential use category, right, is paramount right now. When you look at who had their lights on last year, and specifically who was paying rent, right, it was typically the folks that were more of an essential use. Think groceries, health, wellness, those sort of items. Clearly, they had their lights on and they were paying their bills. So when we look at new deals, and by the way, I don't think this is the last pandemic. I think there's going to continue to be more bumps along the road. And so I really think when folks are kind of looking at projects, they're thinking about what sort of use is it? Is it going to be good now? Is it going to be good 5 years from now? How does that fit within the project? And then equally as important is the credit worthiness. So are they going to pay? Are they going to pay in good times? Are they going to pay in bad times? And so not all dollars are the same. Right? Some folks pay in good and bad times, and some folks ultimately, you might have to flex with them. So I think knowing what's essential, knowing who's creditworthy goes a long way today and in the future.
Yeah, well said. It makes me think about one more thing. Maybe our last question is we focus on reimagining retail, and then we'll spend a little bit of time for our student participants talking about some career stuff, because Wally and Nina and Brendan have some really wonderful advice on that front. But let's kind of end our reimagining discussion with this. If you were a student, if we have some students on right now that say, I really like retail, but I'm worried about it based on how it's struggled. Parts of it have struggled through the pandemic, or there's been a lot in the news about retail struggling in the last few years. What would you say? What's your advice to these students to counter some of those claims and to maybe get them excited about why going specifically into retail is maybe a great place to go right now? And Nina, let's go back to you.
So it's an interesting question, Andy, because I'm really bullish on retail. I mean, the whole theme has been evolving. So it's not retail going away, it's evolving. We've had so many stores announcing very aggressive store counts and plans over the next several years. And I think you take a look at that, like Sephora is a really good example. They've announced they want to open 200 locations, the most in their 21-year history. So you take a look at things like that, and I could name a number of others. I don't think retail is going anywhere. If somebody's really concerned, I would say just remember we had the whole conversation regarding mixed use. So if another time you wanted to go into another asset class, you could. but you deal with such incredible entrepreneurs and companies in retail that are really imaginative and on the edge of what consumers want. And I think it's a really exciting part of a career.
The creativity is so much fun, right, Nina? I mean, I'm so glad you said that. Brendan, how about you? And then Wally, we'll let you have the last word on this one.
Like Nina, I have a strong conviction that retail, brick and mortar, is here to stay. Fortunately, humans are just hardwired to want to interact, see, and engage with other people, right? A lot of folks like to be remote, and then they get back in the office, they're like, man, I missed that connection, myself in particular. So to Nina's point, like with restaurants, you could kind of answer it on yourself. Like, do you prefer to eat at home every night, or would you like to go out and eat with other people, right? Same things with the pharmacist. And I think it's just easy to use specific examples here. Let's say you're dealing with your mom or dad, right? And they have, they're taking a few different medicines and they don't know which medicines they should take or not, right? It's a drug utilization review. It's really important for your health. Probably not going to do that online. I wouldn't recommend to do that online. I would probably recommend to go wherever you go and talk to a professional pharmacist, right? So things like the restaurant experience or the specialty pharmacy, I don't think that's going anywhere. I just think it's evolving. And hopefully other folks feel the same way.
Great stuff. And Wally, how about you?
I agree. In retail, the question sort of was, should we be afraid because is retail going away? And what we've already learned by studying retailers who offer in-store experience as well as online is that they actually complement each other. And so, that's something I think that's important for students to know. The online model as a business model is actually not as profitable as having a store because it costs a lot of money to deliver things and then to accept returns. It's actually a more profitable model, which is why Amazon, right, world's largest online retailer, is now opening physical stores. They're getting into that space. And so think about it this way, the model is better with a combination of both. And so, you shouldn't hesitate. Retail's still going to be around. I do think that any student that thinks about getting into retail or anybody that gets into retail should think, unlike some industries, there's a ton of flux and a ton of change. So you might not be with the one company. I want to go work for Lululemon. You might be with Lululemon a few years and make a change because there's a lot of change in the retail industry, and that's okay. We see it on our side, on the real estate side all the time. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's as Brendan said, we're hardwired to want to interact, and it'll stay.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to kind of wrap a bow on our discussion on reimagining retail. But maybe even better, and I know this because I've spoken to all of you, is diving into what's next, a little bit on choosing your career path, finding stuff that really matters to you. So, I'm really curious to hear some of your advice on what's changing in terms of finding the best career path for you these days. I know that there's a lot that we could talk about here. Nina, maybe we can start off with you talking about how choosing a career path has changed and maybe advice you have.
So I'll talk about it as it relates to commercial real estate, because when I graduated college, the sectors were very segmented. So you sort of chose one specific path and it was straight retail or straight office or straight industrial or whatever it was. And as we talked about, since it's evolving, I think there's a lot more crossover and as a result, a ton more opportunities where there haven't been before. I also think that commercial real estate, the companies in general have really evolved and now offered much more structured internship opportunities and rotational programs that students should really be aware of and taking advantage of. I think the key to that is to start that search early, like way before you want to do it, so you understand which companies are doing it and what they're offering. The last thing that I'll just mention is that I've listened to a lot of career panel discussions myself, and there's always like this conversation around mentorship and mentors and finding mentors. And I think it's a little bit misleading because I think it almost creates this vision that you as a young student are going to arrive at your internship or your first job, and there's going to be like a lineup of people clamoring to be your mentor in the new company. And unfortunately, that's just not how it works. So knowing that and going in, working hard, building relationships, collaborating with people, reciprocating, that leads to more organic growth around mentoring. And that's, I think, when it happens. So,
Nina, I'm so glad you brought that up. And by the way, for any students who haven't been to ICSC's career pages yet, to Nina's point about the training and the support that these companies can give you, ICSC is constantly sharing some of these job and internship opportunities that you can apply for, and other really innovative things like the Launch program. So make sure that you're checking out those resources. We promote them quite a bit to our students. I know my colleagues in other schools across the country are promoting them as well. Definitely worth your time. But that doesn't mean you just automatically get a mentor. Like you said, Nina, you still have to work and build these relationships with people. So, but let's stay on this, changing about finding your right career path. Wally, let's go to you next. Tell us what your thoughts are, and especially you noted that you have some teenagers in your house, so they're probably barely starting to think about this stuff too.
So, yeah, my oldest is a freshman in college right now, and when we were talking about majors, I encouraged her to look at business, not because I wanted her to be tied to a certain specific role within business, but because I said everything is business. Every company out there is in some way a business. So learning how to understand how businesses make money, how they're profitable, how they operate, is going to help no matter what path you take, and or what industry you decide to go in. I think I heard you say, Andy, what's changing, and that's good for our students to know. When I got into the commercial real estate industry, it was dominated by men. It was dominated by men that looked like me, and we were servicing clients, honestly, who looked like me. And at the time, interestingly enough, I look a lot younger than I do now, and I thought, I felt bad about it. Today, oh my gosh, we are, especially as a big publicly traded company, we are recognizing the world has changed, our clients have changed, and we need diversity. We need young people that come in that are diverse, that have diverse ideas, that align with our clients, and that our clients feel comfortable with. It's sort of one of the messages as I thought about speaking today that I wanted to share with students is, don't be afraid if you think, maybe I don't have the right background or to go into commercial real estate, or I don't have those contacts. We are actually looking for young people, and we want them in our organization, especially diverse candidates. And when you get here, as Nina said, there's not always a mentor, but we're not going to hire somebody and not provide any training. And so we want you to be successful. So when I hire students, I don't think that they know much about commercial real estate when they walk in the door. I didn't. So don't hesitate to think of it as a career path, even if you have no commercial real estate experience.
Such great advice, Wally. And I think it's really important that we do touch on diversity, both in gender and ethnicity and background and experience. So let's touch on that in just a little bit. And maybe, Nina, we can lean on you for you've worked a lot. It's really important to you to mentor younger women that are getting into the industry. Tell us a little bit more about some of that work. And then, Brendan, we're going to circle right back to you to talk about some of these changes as well and what you're seeing.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Women make up more than half of the population. They make 70 to 80% of all consumer purchasing decisions. And yet, when you take a look at our commercial real estate sector, they make up about 36% of the sector. And what's interesting about that, too, is it's a number that hasn't changed much over the last 15 years. So it's really stayed stagnant. I think it's crazy, candidly, because I think women bring such a unique perspective to the table, and they need to embrace it, be proud of it, and candidly play a larger role. So I work a lot with women and mentoring women within my company and within the industry. I love it. And if I could just share maybe with some of the women who might be listening today, people talk a lot about sort of finding your voice. You have to find your voice. And what I found is that the women that I work with are strong, capable, talented. They have a voice. So I think what's really critical is to learn how to use your voice. And a common theme that I really hear often from women is that they know what they want to say, but they either struggle with the confidence to say it, or they don't strategically think through how they need to deliver that message. And how you communicate the message, really matters. So I try to share, tap into or build your confidence, pay attention to how you hone your voice and your message, and be strategic. It's advice that has served me well in my career so far, and it's something I still work on.
And, Nina, I'm guessing that for any women who are watching this, in terms of not just finding your voice, but using your voice, they probably are more ready to use their voice than they realize. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree.
Yeah. So, Brendan, back to, and thanks for that, Nina, and thanks for the some more details there. And Brendan, back to the same question, this overarching question of like how things have changed and how people are looking at differently getting into their careers. What's your take?
Yeah, actually, Wally hit on it earlier, and I think that is don't think one gig or one job is a place to land forever. It just doesn't happen much. I'll use myself. I like to think I didn't go to college that long ago, but 14 years ago, when I went to college in Ohio, at Miami of Ohio, they were still basically teaching us in undergrad. And a lot of these folks were going to Procter & Gamble and working there for their career, or going to the big four accounting firms and working for their career. They were almost coaching folks that jumping or pivoting or a lot of different jobs along the way wasn't good. And I couldn't argue enough the opposite, as long as it kind of fits within a logical career arc, right? So if you're jumping from one industry to the other and it makes no sense, that probably not in your best interest. But if you have a plan and you know that the first step that you're at might not be your forever step, and it fits within a bigger puzzle, and that's okay, I think that's important to share. I happen to land at one company, Walgreens, the last 14 years, but I've had 7 jobs. 7 jobs in 14 years. So call it 2 years apiece, right? And it wasn't 2 years apiece, but just to show 7 jobs in 14 years. And every single time, and this is kind of what I want to share to piggyback on what Nina was saying, everybody has a voice, but everybody can use it differently. Every single time I wanted a promotion, or I wanted to change, or I wanted to change lanes, I was doing a good job and I was performing. That doesn't mean you automatically get promotions, right? Nobody shows you the light at the tunnel. You got to create the tunnel, and you got to walk on your own, right? There's mentors out there, and there's folks that can help you do that, but you got to take control of your own career, knowing, right? You might have a few different jobs along the way. It might be different. Some might be great, some might not. But as long as you kind of know where you might want to head. And for me, I love real estate. I love driving by real estate. I love touching real estate. And I know I want to be in this industry, right? And so for me, I had that passion from the beginning. Now I'm just having a bunch of different jobs and responsibilities along the ride.
And a lot of fun, we can tell.
Lots of fun. Yeah, I love my job. I really do.
Well, we're now into kind of the last quarter of our time together. I know that we have at least one question. We have a few more questions for our panelists and one more poll question for everybody. But let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead and answer this poll question. And Haley, I know you have a question as well. So as we go through this poll question, would love to hear your question, Haley. So go ahead and shoot.
Hi. First of all, I would like to thank you all for having this presentation, especially Nina. As a woman going into commercial real estate, it's really nice to have you speak and touch on that. My question is, do you guys see real estate moving towards adjusting more towards the suburbs? Because I know a lot more people are moving out and want to get more space. Or do you think that, I don't know when the pandemic is going to end, but that people are going to want to have the communication, they're going to want to have that unity again, that it's going to move more towards the cities?
And Haley, tell us your school and what year you are.
Oh, okay. I go to University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm a senior, and I'm studying human geography, real estate, environmental studies.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Haley. And great question. Wally, Nina, Brendan, who'd like to tackle this first?
I'm glad to try to answer the question. And Haley, good question. I think just as I mentioned earlier, there's definitely knee-jerk reactions happening as a result of the pandemic, and the flight to the suburbs is something that in the industry everyone's talking about. So it's a really timely question. However, cities work. They work for a good reason. I mean, they're efficient. Retailers need a lot of customers to survive. Office buildings, tend to cluster, and then once they cluster, then retailers can cluster around them because of that daytime population. The model works really, really well. And so even though, yes, you're going to see, some suburban activity for a while until we all feel comfortable at going back, I feel very confident, I know my company does, that the urban setting, especially as it's been adapting over the years, where there's more people living and working in the same district, we're just going to see more of that. My prediction. We'll find out if I'm right.
Nina or Brendan, any follow-ups?
I think Wally's right. I mean, I think he's right. I think actually now's probably the time to get some good discounts on, more city sites. But no, I think Wally's exactly right.
Yeah, I think they both offer something. Agree. The pro with the suburbs that a lot of people make the argument is space and less cost. Right? You can get more space and it's cheaper, but you're less connected. And ultimately, we're in an age of collaboration. We're in an age where things is evolving really fast. So do you want to be out in the suburbs when you're targeting like your customer and thinking about that in mind? So, well, the suburbs offer space. I think the city and the more urban, if you will, approach is here to last. I think it's more sticky, and I think if you ask that question, Haley, like a year or two from now, it'll be kind of funny, right? I think we're probably going to be more back towards the city, and we're going to be like, wow, suburbs had a nice run. But it's a great question right now, and time will tell.
And Michael, can we pull up the poll results one more time? I thought that this was a really interesting kind of cross section of how people were prioritizing what's more important about the career. It looks like so we might have lost our responses, but you can take it down, Michael. I noted that we had a lot of people mentioning that having the work-life balance was really important, which I think is really something that's common, especially for Gen Z. Gen Z going through college right now. Probably most of you that have joined us on this with our panel today. So, let's talk about another thing that I know that's really important to Gen Z, and that's making an impact. And of course, students, if you have more questions, raise your hand. Get ready to do this. But we'll kind of ask our panelists one more question here about making an impact in your career. So, a lot of us are motivated by making an impact. And so for you as panelists, what are the best ways to really make an impact in your career, especially within a career in such a great industry like real estate? And Brendan, let's go right back to you, and then Wally and Nina will let you have the last word on this one.
Yeah, happy. I think the key for me is that, especially for the folks listening, you can make an impact in a variety of ways, right? There's so many ways specifically to make an impact in the commercial real estate world. And I've been able to make an impact in a variety of different ways. For me, I was a competitive athlete in college, and for me, I'm very competitive. I like looking up at the scoreboard, and I like seeing how many points are on the board, right? So I say points, I say impact. It's the same thing, right? Personally and professionally, I like making a big impact. At the beginning of my career, it was all about building stores. Built hundreds of Walgreens stores, and it was all about serving those communities and making sure we were close to those folks. And the middle part of my career was all about like optimizing the portfolio. So growing, shrinking, optimizing all at the same time. And now it's all about saving money. And completely different than what I used to do. but I still get to look up at the scoreboard. I still get to see a lot of points. And now instead of spend, it's savings. So for me, you can make an impact in a variety of different ways. It just so happens now I'm saving money, but I'm still looking up at the scoreboard.
And you're working with a company that's all, what you said, 9,000 stores across the country, and probably making a difference every single day in people's lives. And you get to be part of that in terms of making sure that people have access to that, right? I mean, that's got to feel really good too.
You know, I'm excited to feel like my team and myself is making an impact, right? For example, no one would have really thought about this much, Andy, but you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was one of the first people at the company to say, hey, we have all these dark locations. Should we be utilizing them for COVID testing sites? Right? They're just sitting there, right? I'm not necessarily putting dollar points up on the scoreboard, but the few testing sites that we did, and then we actually flexed and did more, those are different points. Those are like real points. Those are like community impact points. And for me, you know, it's pretty cool. You know, I'm not saving money, but like we did 2,000 shots per day on average, right? In most of these places. And we help the community.
Big time. And Wally, how about you? You're working with these tenants every day. That's gotta feel like you're making an impact too, because they're impacting their communities.
Well, it's funny, as a firm, we have shifted sort of our mission statement. You know, every big corporation has a mission statement, and our mission statement shifted a couple of years ago to reflect that we touch as a huge global firm, and it's not just JLL. It's, you know, think about the real estate industry. We touch all of this real estate, and that impact of that real estate on our planet is tremendous. So you know, we our environment and the challenges that we're facing are the way we live and where we work and where we shop has a big impact on our planet. And so for folks that want to be engaged in a career that where they recognize the impact that it has, one of the things about commercial real estate is it has such a big impact on the planet that the way we start to treat it and the way we do things differently. And I mentioned, you know, as an example, that the city's here to stay. Cities, when you think about them, concrete and buildings and everything, really they don't strike you when you first think about them as environmentally friendly or something, but really they are, because if you put everybody together where they work, live, and shop in a smaller place, you're reducing movement, you're reducing the need for transportation, which has, you know, an impact on our planet. And so actually environmentally, keeping people together in cities and then designing those spaces, designing that real estate and managing it, that's what folks who get into this industry can have an impact on. And so there's think about it that way. It's not just about, you know, selling and managing real estate. It's how, you know, managing that for the future will have a big impact on our planet. So there's great opportunities here.
Yeah, well, so well said, Wally. And Nina, I know this is core to you too, because this is what you guys are doing, creating these spaces. Tell us what you think.
So I'm going to personalize it a little bit in the sense to each student, because I know what it's like kind of coming out of school and wanting to create an individual impact yourself. Never underestimate the power you have to create impact. And I love what David Brooks says, which is every day show up and be the best version of yourself. And I really believe that if you do that consistently, showing up that way, treating people well, you never know what you can do. And sometimes you don't know the impact that you're creating. And I just want to share a quick story about what happened about very early in my career, 2 years out of college. I was leasing a shopping center and assigned to lease some of the most challenging spaces in the center. And I met this man whose passion was shoe service repair. He was incredibly passionate about what he did. So I leased the space to him. He opened up his business. Fast forward 18 years later, he and I reconnected through a friend. And what he shared with me that at the time he leased the space and opened up his business, he and his family were on the brink of being homeless. And opening that business allowed him to generate the income to pay his rent. eventually to buy his home and put his 3 children through college. So it was something that really changed his life. And I thought I was just doing my job and leasing him space. So it demonstrates you never really know the impact that you're creating. So show up as your best self, seek opportunities, and don't underestimate yourself. And by the way, I'll say he's still open in the same spot today.
Wow. I mean, what an incredible story, Nina. Thank you for sharing that. I think we're all feeling inspired just to think about just how on any one day of what we're doing could change someone's life or change the course of something that happens in our community for the better. So thank you for that. Well, I think that may be one of the best possible ways that we could probably wrap up here. I see no additional extra questions, unless Michael, I might be missing anything. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I want to thank our panelists, Nina and Wally and Brendan, so much for joining us today for a fantastic conversation about reimagining retail. And also a huge thanks to ICSC for putting this on. Wishing everybody a wonderful day ahead, and take care, everyone.